I want to welcome everybody to the NWO show, your source for everything New World. We do have some news. After weeks of, hey, soon it's coming. Eventually, um, like more details to be coming. One of the things I will say is obviously there is a dev blog that will eventually be coming. Um, they have been
Yep.
very forward about the fact that they're going back into alpha at some point in time. Um, And in the last couple of weeks, we have started to see um, some increased interactions on Twitter. Um, some of these interactions include the following. So, currently, the best way to receive an invite to the alpha or beta um, is to sign up through the beta signups on the website. So, as per normal, that's going to be the route they're going, or participating in any giveaways that will happen on our official social media channels. Keep an eye out for that. So, they're going to do what they did on the last one. It's not going to be everyone from the preview or anything like that. Um, Invitations to the upcoming New World Alpha are selected at random from the list of previous alpha signups and current closed beta signups. So if you've signed up before, you're still in. Um, it's or you're still in the pool to be drawn from. Um, they also have another one that unfortunately I didn't clip for this show, but they've got another one that says prior alpha participation doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get into the next one. So make sure that you're signed up, make sure that you've got your email into their system, and yeah. So you will be notified via email. So that is the same way that they have done that for a while now. Um, and you know, like this says it best. Fingers crossed. You know, bunch of good stuff. We're 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 looking forward to it. So there was some confusion that people were going to be, just mass invited, like everybody from the preview or something like that. We're going to get in. That is not seeming to be the case, as they pretty clearly state. Um, you know, find the exact Going through some stuff. There we go. Moving back into the alphas testing, starting with a small pool and adding testers as needed. This test will be confidential, but we will work to share our progress as we go. So that is a pretty pretty set path forward. I know it's obviously not a dev blog, and we've been expecting a dev blog for a while, but I think this gives us what we need to kind of move forward and see what's to be expected here. Um, and yeah, so alpha. The other thing that is pretty obvious at this point is that some point in November we will be getting a new alpha state of the game, and based on some prior things that have come out, we can also generally expect that the alpha itself will be containing additional things beyond what was seen in the preview. Not just because hey, it's been some time, but because as mentioned in the developer interview that came out at the end of the preview week um, on Asmongold's channel, uh, they
hmm
they basically said, hey, the version that we saw is about 3 months old from when we saw
Yeah.
it. So that was the version that hey, we're gonna bug stamp as much as we can. We're gonna try and figure out how to make this the most playable version for the people. Then um, we're going to push it out, see how people like it, see what needs to change, and then we're very clear about going into the alpha state again. Um, I think that's a good plan for them. Like, they did well. They got the 50,000 plus concurrent users, which is huge for a game that hasn't launched. Um, I think that a lot of the overwhelming majority stated that they had a positive opinion of the game, but that there were changes that needed to be made. Um, Obviously some depth when it comes to the late game and when it comes to missions is going to be a huge priority of theirs. Um, And they actually spoke to that um, on their website. Um,
Yeah.
Trying to find the exact article that it's on.
Yeah.
Know what I'm looking for. So, um, our goal over the coming months is to give players even more to do while maintaining a polished experience. Uh, we plan to focus on adding more mid to end game content, but also features that are just fun and deliver more on the promise of a world in which you can get lost. Which, like, for anybody who did any kind of exploring or anything, that was just you could just get lost in the world. You could go run around and do whatever you want. I know for me, I spent
Oh, for sure.
hours just hunting buffalo, um, because that was just fun. You um, Enjoyed it
Because somehow
greatly.
you feel they need to be extinct.
Yes, I will make them extinct again.
Oh, fuck.
So specifically, things that they wanted to work towards adding more in the areas of game modes. So I think that we might see more additional things like the sieges, like the invasions, maybe in the form of like a battleground, um, like faction battlegrounds that you can sign up and would be a little bit more frequent, um, and have different rewards than the sieges. So obviously, the sieges are over the town and only happen once a day, if they happen once a day at all. Um, but maybe adding some other opportunities for the factions to PvP against each other would be really cool. Um, you know, and a whole bunch of other different opportunities there. Landmass. So things that we also know is that the map itself was in the files of the game. You did have to do a little bit of Photoshop to patchwork it together, but we actually have that image um, right here. So this is what was data mined um, out of the system or out of the version of the game that was for the preview event. You can see the areas of the map that we had access to, and they have a very high level of detail, and then you have a substantially less level of detail as you get further and further away from that. That's obviously because they're not going to ship assets that are not part of the completed map. Now, what this could
Yeah.
tell you is that there is obviously more to the map here. Um, and we can glean that from, hey, the map goes beyond the edge, and there's a big barrier that keeps you from going beyond the edge. And in
Mm.
some occasions, there were people who made it through that barrier and walked around in that area, and they could tell you there's not a ton out there.
No.
Um, because the further away you get, obviously there's no detail out there because this would show
That's
it.
not their. That's not their.
Yeah,
That's not the targeted area for for them to work in.
exactly. Now we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens for the final release. But it wouldn't surprise me if we saw more areas pop open and become available and expand on the map that we know. Now that said, because this is alpha, I don't anticipate this map to be accurate to 100% because things will change. They'll add stuff, they'll remove stuff, they might reshape the entire continent. We don't know. Um, but those are
Mm.
all things that they are capable of doing and would be highly interesting if they did. Um, so, from there, we have been able to also identify a number of other things through uh, we'll call him not confidential source, who has been posting on the one true subreddit, um, the r-new world game, um, who has basically been posting all kinds of data mined valuables or data mined variables from the game set after uncompressing all of the files, um, which, keeping in mind, that is something that you are actually allowed to do. However, something in his first post, because he also posted a YouTube video, something in that first video was something that Amazon Games um, threw the copyright strike on YouTube for. So
Oof.
was interesting to see. I didn't see anything that hadn't already been said in that video, but I wasn't paying that close of attention. I think it was because he was describing how to do it, and they don't particularly want people to just go dive into those files. Um, when it comes to a lot of this, I do want to mention that, like, obviously, when it comes to alpha products, you're gonna have code in there that is stuff that isn't finished. You're gonna have code in there that's stuff that is actually just abandoned, that they're not gonna go back to, and you're gonna have stuff in there that is completed but not validated for use. So, um, one of the criticisms is that, hey, we've seen a lot of these other weapons in promotional things, but we didn't get to play with them. So things like the pistol, things like the spear, we've seen those in promotional things. So obviously they have that asset built, but it might not be in a position where it was playable enough to justify putting it in the preview week. Um, I would assume that they're going to take a look at those things and they're going to identify that, hey, obviously we wanted more weapons, and I think that it would be very reasonable for us to see many more weapons come into play here. Um, Now, there are some other things. There are, things like mounts. We know that eventually, if we get this full size map, there was a lot of running to begin with. Um, I think if we make the assumption that, hey, there was a lot of running to begin with, but at the same time, we kind of want to see more. We want to, we want to travel further. Um, Adding something that keeps you integrated into the world in a way where you can be knocked off your horse and things like that, of which we've discussed in prior episodes on here. We went through these specific files when it comes to mounts. There are horse death animations. There are um, animations where it throws you off. Like if those are the ways they implement
Yep.
mounts, then phenomenal. It'll add to PvP.
Yeah, well for it.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that's almost been universal is that flying mounts should either A, not be a thing at all, or B, be incredibly rare. Like to the point of like Ashes of Creation, where like they have the prestige mounts, where like only the governor of a city is able to have it. That might be the
Mm.
only way to implement them, because like you can't allow people to just yeet themselves across the map with no risk. Like I don't see that being of value in the game, and I think it leads to some of the issues that like World of Warcraft has faced.
Yeah.
So, what else do we got?
Hmm.
Um, so we got some stuff on Twitch integration. We know that Twitch integration is going to be a thing. We don't know exactly how it's going to take place, and a lot of the stuff that's in these files specifically are not. You can't actually see them, so it's really a matter of just how is it actually going to play out, what's actually going to be there, um, and how they're going to plan to kind of keep it going. Um, that said, um, there were a couple of things that they identified, like the red dot icon. I would assume that that'll probably show up on your nameplate, as well as there's a spot for your Twitch name in the social window and stuff like that. I think those would be quick, easy ways to integrate, as well as I believe there's something that'll probably tell you, hey, this person you just got killed and X amount of people were just watching you, which would be funny. Um, you know, they start talking a little bit about purchase skins. There's a click button logic that should launch the Steam overlay screen, which is likely to buy premium currency or the DLC or something like that. Um, that makes total sense to me. Um, Weapon crafting, unlimited leveling system possible. There's a bunch of really cool stuff in here. But continue to the next one. So there's a whole bunch of different weapons that they've looked for: mace, rapier, spear, great axe, to name a few. Pistols, um, you know, bunch of different weapons to be added. Um, Weapon skins, gauntlets, fire gauntlets, great axes, one hand, two-handed mace, daggers. Not these are not the skinning knives. They're actual daggers. Halberds, spears, ice staff, which is a new one that I don't think anybody has seen. One-handed swords, including a cutlass, a khopesh, a rapier, saber. Two-handed swords. File is named longsword. Also files in there called greatsword. Um, Pistols. There's a wand test file, which I think is interesting. Some of the other
Mm.
skins, and some of these might be useful. Some of them are probably just other assets that are borrowed. Pitchfork, shovel, rake, fishing pole, torch, and quiver. Now, we know that you have a quiver because, that's where you store arrows. Um, we've
Yeah.
seen assets that have a torch, but what we haven't seen is the fishing pole. And in a prior episode, we definitely talked about the fishing pole as well. Um, I fully anticipate that fishing will be in the game, because you're going to want to be able to get fish for some of the recipes. Um, you know, there are recipes that
Yeah.
require them, and currently the only way to get them is provisioning crates, which
Yep.
that doesn't no.
It's a bit rare, but you do get them. But there's a fair amount of certain recipes and certain things like in the game that you would you would think, considering their ubiquity in recipes and that kind of stuff, like, and it's not just like food; it's like other things as well that would be a little bit more commonplace, but they're actually quite rare. So
Yes. So one of the things that they confirmed on Twitter that is also confirmed here, um, in this paste bin, is that they are going to include controller support in the released version now. Um, Now, there are a few people that would make the leap here to say, oh, this is them trying to take the opportunity to, you know, get themselves in on the new consoles. Launch it as cross console. I don't think that's the case, and here's my thinking on why. Um, One, the logic here doesn't work for that, um, for a couple of reasons. So if you notice, the PC, Xbox, PS3, and Wii U also this is an on-off switch basically. So one is on, two is off. So even if you are using a controller, your keyboard is active all of the time, and that tells me that that is not compatible. Um, like that,
mm,
because the Wii U doesn't have a keyboard. The PS3 can have a keyboard, and the Xbox doesn't have a keyboard. So um, that tells me that's not the route they're going to go. I don't think that they would announce the game as PC only and then change that later. They might down the road. I'm not going to completely say that won't be a thing, but I don't think that this says anything more than, hey, were enabling some controller support because it was requested a lot. Like the number of emails
Yeah.
and tweets and stuff that like went to them about controller support was through the roof. I mean, even McLeod here, you played with the controller. Like,
Yeah, I did.
you know, obviously there was a little functionality
It's
that was challenging, but
yeah, there was definitely functionality, and there was kind of like the added challenge of trying to translate what the keybinds that you put to particular buttons on your controller were when it basically prompted you in game. You're like, oh fuck. Like you had to do that translation yourself rather than the game basically doing it for you, which was an additional bit of you know um, an additional challenge. Um, but the thing that I liked about it was um, New World can be obviously an intense game, but there's large parts of it that are actually pretty relaxed and really chill. And playing it on a controller like is the ultimate like chill out kind of way of playing it as well. So
yes, makes it much more casual. Makes it able to be played in
mm.
the reclined position. You know,
Well, just to
uh,
just well, the thing is, like, when you're playing a PC game, like you're generally sort of, upright slash, leaning forward a little bit, right? You know,
mhm,
when you're playing with when you're playing a controller, like you can literally be on your sofa, just like relax.
exactly. Just makes it a different experience, but like gives you all the same options as well, which I think is valuable. For one, like the handicap side of things, like enabling controller and accessibility issues is huge. Um, but
Mm.
also like down the road, it does actually make it a little bit easier to port the game if they wanted to go that route.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I'm sure that they have thought about that, but I don't know that that's going to be a thing for them. Mainly
I
because I
I
think
would.
they're going to focus on Luna, which is their streaming service, which I highly
Yeah.
think is going to be. Um, I think that this is going to be on there. It makes sense to
It
be on
probably
there.
will be. Yeah, it makes complete sense. It'll be on there. I'm just thinking back to my time playing with playing it on controller, and the one thing which was really aggravating to to use with a controller was the slider for setting the amount that you're going to be basically dragging. Like if you're splitting a stack, like oh Jesus Christ,
Yeah,
that was terrible. You need if you're gonna make that more friendly, sort of more a better kind of experience, then you need to sort of somehow make that as a like default to like increase decrease via the sort of like the shoulder buttons, that kind of thing. That'll work.
yeah,
R
um,
one R two L1 R2 like something like that.
yeah. Dustin
Anyway,
TV's got a good comment here. Although 100% controller players will always be at a disadvantage in player versus player environments.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is and
totally.
will always be the case.
Yes.
As somebody who plays Call of Duty and fights against people who get a massive aim assist and can still dumpster them, there's no amount of help that you can give a controller to make it equal to a mouse.
No.
Um, it's
Just the capacity to 180, to 180 headshot, like it is just unparalleled on keyboard and mouse compared to a controller.
yep,
Like, I granted, there's some really, really good controller players out there, and there are some really terrible keyboard and mouse players out there. And in those instances, that controller player will probably waste that keyboard and mouse player. But like, sort of relative skill levels, like yeah, your keyboard, your average keyboard and mouse player will outperform your average, controller player every
yeah.
time.
Now there has been a
That's
lot of
just how it is.
commentary around the fact that the number of skills and abilities allow pretty nicely to be mapped 1-to-1 for most controllers. Um, which I think is nice, but the reality is like again, Dustin TV's right on the money. The 180-degree sword lunge is basically meta. Like, and that is
Mm.
that would be very, very difficult to do on a controller. Um, yeah. So we got the data mined content. We've got a whole bunch of it. Unfortunately, the individual who's been pulling this content is no longer going to be posting what he refers to as data mined Mondays, um, and that's just because he's run out of stuff to post, and a lot of it just requires like this super deep reading into thick code that just doesn't not worth doing. Um, it's all really kind of cool stuff. Take a little while to see it. Um, it'll be worth it. Um, One of the other things that I do want to talk about while we're here, um, and this probably be the last topic for the show, is Amazon Game Studios has discontinued and stood down the team from Crucible. So Crucible Crucible did not have a good launch. Um, Crucible had a very bad reception, and it was not made any easier by the fact that it didn't have what is quite obviously some things that would have been very nice to have. Um, it just it wasn't there. Um, it the best way to put this is a team-based game that requires communication with your team with no text chat and no voice chat. And the time to kill felt like you were trying to take down a skyscraper with a spoon. Like, it was like it wanted to be a first person shooter, but also wanted to be like something else, like a team based,
Well,
battle royale. But like then it just like
from what I've heard, like a lot of the issue stems from the fact that the map was too large for the scale that for the amount of people that were there and the scale that was happening, like that the action was happening at. Like, so essentially, people just got fucking bored. Like, it was difficult to even find people in order to actually fight them.
yeah,
And and even when you did, like, there was situations where you would just you'd easily find ways of being able to basically escape the situation if if you're kind of like if the situation wasn't to your advantage kind of thing.
yeah. And it wasn't balanced. Like for all the people out there that like look for opportunities to be like I'm not being fair and balanced on AGS. Like Crucible was how that managed to get as far as it did without feedback saying, hey, like major change was needed. Uh, the, oof, ouch is all I have to say. Um, that is not good. Now that said, instead of taking a game that is effectively dead, like it released once, it was not received well. Within a week, almost nobody was playing it, and at that point, you've got a lot of damage control to bring it out of the woodworks. Versus comparatively, you've got New World. And New World has, during the preview event, broke 50,000 concurrent users. That's crazy. That's a lot of people playing the game. So
Oh yeah.
clearly they know they have something with New World. There's something that make people want to play that game. They want to play this game. It's why we've got people watching the show right now. They want to play the game. They're interested in the game. Um, and we've got a lot of time until we can play the game. um, but that's the reality of this: is that we have that opportunity to take, or that Amazon has that opportunity to take assets from a team that was gonna be either fighting like the toughest uphill battle to relaunch a game in probably gaming history. Like I can't think of very many games that went back from a release state to a closed alpha. Um, like simply put, um, oh, No Man's. You're not wrong saying No Man's Sky. Like you're not because I've played it recently. It is a very good game now. But
It is.
if you ask most of the gaming community what their impression of No Man's Sky is, and they're going to say, I don't want to touch it because it was so bad at release that there's no way they could have fixed it, despite the fact that they fixed it.
Yeah.
Um, like,
It's the memes were all
yeah,
powerful at the
yeah.
time.
So, and, you know, maybe it's a good thing to just drop the project and say, hey, let's move on to something else. They're going to take parts of the team and distribute them across the Amazon Game Studio. I would imagine a few of them will go over to Amazon Web Services because they got coders um, that are probably familiar with it. Um, from there, they're going to bolster the ranks and support the development of New World. And I think that that's going to be huge. Like taking that opportunity to actually build out the best game they can. You know, and a lot of people have questioned the timing of this as well. Like, why they didn't just cancel it when the game just died on release. Um, so parts of this revolve around like modularizing code. Um, hopefully, the creative director of Crucible doesn't have a say in New World content. You're not wrong.
Oh god, yeah.
um, I do think that the New World team um, has a solid head on their shoulders for what needs to be fixed, where the direction of the game needs to go. And I think that that was pretty evident with when it comes to like PvP. Um, you know, um, I can't talk about what happened in the alpha, but obviously, if you were on a larger, more populated server, you had no issues in finding PvP. Like, unless you were literally in the middle of nowhere, in a place where nobody would go, and they had no reason to go there, then maybe you had a challenge finding PvP. But like, if you were in around any of the major hubs or major settlements, you had no issue finding PvP if you wanted it. You know, that was fun, and there was a lot of concern coming from the smaller, less populated servers that oh well, there's not going to be enough PvP in this game because there's not enough people, or there's not enough incentive. Well,
Mm.
PvP in itself is an incentive. Like, there is an adrenaline rush there that makes it fun.
I
Um,
mean, yeah. There's also, I mean, there was also, people who kind of got their initial kind of like enjoyment of PvP, but like that soon wore off to some degree. Um, there were some sort of fairly prominent streamers, and I'm not talking streamers who just complain for the sake of complaining, like streamers who actually do genuinely enjoy good games when the good games come across. Who kind of did sort of you know um I was going to say parrot the same sort of thing. It's not that they're parroting the same thing; it's that they kind of notice the same sort of thing. But like, there was a sort of like a too much of an ease of people being able to disengage and be able to sort of get away from a fight if going south, but also in that kind of same sense, the not enough of a desire or not enough of a like not, wouldn't say a necessity, but like a desire to have PvP for whatever reason.
yeah.
Like one
Now,
of them was obviously
I
Summit.
do agree with that. I do think that there should be more reasons and more opportunities to PvP. Um, so like them talking about game modes, going back to this, them talking about game modes is huge. Like, hey,
Yeah, but how
you
would
know,
that work in a sandbox open world game though? Like, you know,
same way the
I'm
sieges
kind of
do.
wondering in that regard. Yeah, maybe,
Create an
I
area
guess
that
that's true.
gets turned into a battlefield for you know a 30-minute battle, between all three factions over shit. It could be capture the flag for all I care. Like, just something that has a substantial reward for participating and winning. Um,
Mm,
you know, I think that'd be fun.
okay.
Um, make it make make
I
it
mean,
make it domination or something like that. Like capture points, hold them for a certain amount of time. You know, that could be fun.
part of me does get a little triggered in the denial of sort of areas of the game when that particular thing starts to occur. You know, when you're not a part of it.
Yeah.
But
Um,
I can there's I can kind of I understand the necessity to basically stop outside influences from fucking with the with the 50 on 50, right?
yeah. There
That I
very
totally
quickly
get.
becomes
Like I
balance
think there's
problems where for those that are unaware, McLeod and I both come from the same organization, the same larger organization, but different sub
mm,
organizations of the Imperium. Which, if we ever brought our people in mass on release, um, we would be probably not contested anywhere in terms of numbers.
and en masse, by the way, I'd hasten to say that that's a hell of a lot more
That's
than
we
13
could
odd
probably
votes.
field more people on a single server than the server can hold. So um, the reality
But
is, you know,
there are gaming groups out there that can kind of do sort of similar sort of things as well. So like don't like
yeah,
we're not saying that like we're some sort of like godly huge kind of group that can
yeah,
kind of do this sort of stuff. But like and there's no other groups that can. Like there are groups that obviously can. Like
you know,
there's some particular Brazilian kind of gaming groups that I'm sort of thinking of in that
I
regard
would
that
say
could do
that
something similar.
Test would be among them. However, I think Test is still going to be busy trying to crack into Delve at that point.
Yes.
So I don't think that's gonna come into play. Or like most of Eve is still trying to break into Delve right now, and that's just
Mm.
not gonna happen. They've lost 3 keep stars in the process, which I think is hysterical. Um, Good on them for keeping on trying. It's fun. Um, I mean, there's obviously other groups that could be competitive size wise, but I think that the idea of keeping things fair and relatively balanced in terms of size, uh, they you know um, they do actually seem to take a pretty solid stance against toxicity, and a lot of that rolls around like, hey, what is actually considered balanced, what is considered fair. Like, I think that they do a good job of attacking that and making changes um, to even core game mechanics. Um, you know, and there's a number of different things. So obviously, like if we go back to January and we talk about the big change, the PvP change, going from a PvP all the time to a PvP flag system where you have to flag up and both parties have to be flagged. You know, that stems from, in their words, people just griefing newbies. You know, and I mean,
Hmm.
anybody who thinks that wasn't the problem, they weren't playing the same game or they were the problem. Um,
I was
you
gonna
know,
say, anybody who thinks that wasn't the problem, obviously either hadn't ever experienced it or was on the other side of the equation.
yeah. Um, and like they've worked on a bunch of little things as well. So like the body blocking, things that
Funny
they have
thing
added
about
to the
that.
game is that they actually made it possible. They just didn't really announce it, that if you sheathed your weapon, you could walk right
You
through people. So you couldn't get blocked in anywhere if you knew what you were
Except
doing.
people, yeah,
But people
except
didn't know what they were
I
doing.
mean,
So,
how?
you know,
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, we didn't know about that for quite some time too.
yeah,
So you know,
that was the little known thing is that like you could either do the like swan dive under people, so like
mm,
the running dive, um, that worked in some cases. You could slip your model underneath somebody, or um, you literally just sheathed your weapon and you could just walk through as if they weren't there.
yeah,
Now they could still hit you with their weapon, but you know that was an option. Now, I think that there's some like we'll see how that is in the end game because I think body blocking plays a pretty key role in things like sieges, where like if you're trying to hold one of the gates and you've got a wall of people standing there, like you don't want them to just be able to walk through you, like especially in a game of capture the flag where I can hold you out of the point by making a shield wall around the point, and all of a sudden you can just take your whole team and just run in. That
yeah.
creates some
That'll be a
challenge.
bit broken.
So there's stuff like that that obviously I think I'm pretty confident in saying they're looking at, they're considering. Um, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I think to be completely honest, as much as the introduction to the game is kind of is good in some ways and horrendous in other ways. Um, I think there's a lot more that needs to be kind of conveyed to new players. When they kind of get introduced to the game, like there's a lot of things that are kind of stylistically and kind of thematically broken a little. When it comes to sort of bringing the people into the game and kind of getting them really settled into like this is your guy, this is your character kind of thing. Like you embody this character kind of thing. Um, like that's the thing. Like we don't really kind of know where they are in terms of that sort of new player experience. Because the what we played on the preview was like dated by about was it like 3 months or so, right?
Hmm.
So we don't know how much work there's been like on that particular area of the game in those 3 months. Could have been a lot, could have been not much at all. We don't know.
Well, and there's also like
Um,
some conspiracy type theories out there that we weren't shown everything, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
It's
like
entirely possible.
some tidbits that have people's interest. Where you get this epic voice acted intro when you boot up the game that hey that's that's a lot of depth, like who is this Father Rousseau, like why are you on this ship, like it adds some context, and then like you know um what's his name, Captain Thorpe,
Yeah.
hey, clearly this guy knows way more than he's leading on, and like within the first like 5 minutes you end up fighting him in a way that like he clearly has learned some shit. Like this guy is not new to this.
And it's fucking changed him like
Yeah.
clearly, somewhat seriously.
And then for those of you that made it all the way up to the church at the top of um I was about to call it Mount Doom, but the Shattered Mountain inside um Markguard.
Side Merc God.
Um
Yeah.
he's up there as well as one of the final bosses. So, hey, clearly
And you could kind of
there's a lot of
semi choose
story
him,
here.
like if you could get up there, and kind of like, squeeze past like some of the priests and all that kind of stuff. Like you could, with a decent kind of group, you could potentially like, choose him with not too high level kind of group, but even so.
Yeah. And there's
Uh,
there's a bunch of other like oddities as well. So like Captain Thorpe shows up in a single sheet of lore, and Isabella only shows up in a single sheet of lore. So if you want to tell
Mm.
me that the key character that shows up in the trailer isn't
There's only
actually
one.
like is only going to show up once and we don't ever actually see the model, like, yeah, sure, you know, like this is where
Yeah,
this
I
conspiracy
think there's
starts
things
going
being.
pretty deep, where it's like, oh hey, there's a lot of stuff here that they've shown us. Like they've clearly shown us Isabella. They've like made a point to use her as something that one of the people was working on in one of the dev blogs on their screen. Um, you know, she's a key character in the trailer for the game, and she's
Yeah.
obviously a corrupted captain. Like clearly, there's more there.
Oh
Clearly
yeah,
there's more to the
I'm sure
Thorpe
there's I'm
storyline.
sure there's more there.
Part and the full theory here is that they didn't show us the storyline.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
But there was I think was it a Game Industry Biz article where they
yes,
did kind of like spoil a little bit of like
that's the one where they started
the
talking
sort
about
of
the time
storyline.
warping, and yeah,
Yeah,
that went places. That one
that went
went
places.
places. There that
Yeah,
went directions I didn't even see coming. Um,
and that's a little bit more substantial than just a map bug.
yeah,
But
you know,
that's,
they
we
they've
did see that, by the way.
they very clearly. So part of this theory as well goes into, you know, why would you give somebody the full storyline um, under the conditions of a rapid XP growth that we know they had accelerated XP for the event, that would enable them to complete the entire story within the time they played. So, why would they give you the story for free and then have you, still pre-order the game for 10 months later? Like it kind of feels like they just pulled the module and were like, it'll be good, and then left the intro video in there. Um,
Mm.
like that's kind of what I feel like's happened. Um, there were a few changes that like during that preview I really appreciate, because like there's a couple of the quest lines that like I just hated. Um, so like um, what's the corruption's bane quest line? Like
Oh, Jesus
you
fucking
got to go
Christ, that
all
one.
over hell and
Oh,
back. And of course, you're doing it with 700 other people who are sitting there all trying to mine the same 5 rocks, you know, that
or kill the
respawn
same
every
dude who
five
doesn't
minutes.
respawn. Or that one, or the same dude who doesn't respawn for ages, but like everyone's fucking crowding around.
Yeah.
Like Jesus Christ, there were a lot of situations like that, and I kind of feel like a lot of that stuff needs to kind of basically be just like, you know, just all of the bottlenecking of those sorts of missions, those sorts of things need to kind of just be removed.
Yeah. That needs to be more announced as well, or just hit level 20 and buy the Bane from a faction vendor for 10 faction points.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that would be really nice to know. Like, I knew it from prior versions, and I was like, oh, I didn't see it. So I'm like, oh, they must make you do the quest now. And then, like, yeah, apparently they didn't. And
Mm. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It was like, oh, fuck it, why not? I might as well go through it, etc., etc.
oh, and
Thinking like
part of
you
me was
did,
like,
like,
yeah,
oh,
we should just
they
do it
they
too.
they they've removed it from the faction stores. You have to kind of go through it. So it's like, ah, fair enough. And then like part way through it, and you were just like, shit, I could just buy it. And I was like, I swear I fucking looked at it, and you couldn't buy it, but you can.
I
Oh,
think we might
fuck's
have been
sake!
too low a level to buy it,
I don't know.
and then like that might have been it. Um,
I
but the other part of me
swear I
was like,
looked
oh,
at
we
it
should
and I
play
didn't
through
see
these
it.
quests to be like, get it on video and experience it, and
Mm.
then you get through to the end of the quest line and you're like, oh, for the love of God, thank God it's done. Oh,
But the thing is, right? The thing that was egregious, I think, was fucking like just infuriating about it was it was like, oh, the giant, and like it was almost like the quest kind of like had this, you know, like, you just finished this next quest. and you've got it, and then you finish that next quest and you don't have it, and it goes, go all the way over here, and then you go all the way over there, and you're thinking like, oh, this will be the final one, and then they go, nope, go all the way over there. It's like, oh, fuck's sake. And it was just like, it would be okay if you got the impression of like how of this quest line, how long it was, or how many parts it had, all that kind of thing, or a reason for it the you know uh this particular thing to not to drop. Like,
Yeah.
it was just the constant stringing you on that was just absolutely infuriating. Because I mean, I heard it in your voice when you were doing. You were like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
There was a solid amount of time when I was streaming that like
Mm,
there was a solid, I did most of it, well, not streaming because it was miserable. Um and like if people like the part that I did do on stream, I guarantee that people were like, "Wow, this guy hates this." Like cuz like I spent the whole
like they
time
were
like this is fucking stupid.
there were times where I was streaming and I was hearing you on on Discord. Obviously, not streaming Discord into the stream at the time, and I was just hearing you swearing and cursing about this fucking this fucking quest line that you were going through. It was
Well,
just it
then
was it
you
was
would
cracking
complete the
me up.
quest. You complete the
It was
quest, and
cracking
then
me
you'd
up.
just be like, "Oh, I'm done." And then it would give you another one, and you'd be like, "I hate you. Why do you keep doing
Yeah,
this to
yeah.
me?"
And it made me it did make me chuckle every single time that you kind of got pissed off on it.
And
Um,
then you're standing
up
there
until the
like,
point where I actually did it myself, and then I was like, I feel you, dude,
yeah,
completely.
like you'd be standing there on one of them, and there's like 5 nodes that could drop the special silver or you know, and there were like 95 guys doing it. So like you had to
Or
be the
that
guy
one
who
area.
randomly clicked to get just to get the first swing on that friggin' rock. Eh, and then I had one, the last one. I still remember this because it's etched into my brain. Um, I'd be sitting there on the last swing of the rock, and an NPC would hit me, and the guy next to me would swing and take it and run away. And be like, go!
Oh Jesus,
Needless to say, I really appreciate the fact that quest variety is specifically laid out
good.
in their
I
future
think a lot of
plans.
people. I think a lot of people are glad that that is absolutely 100% called out in the
Yeah.
in the language there. Like, a lot of people were just like, "Oh, fucking Jesus Christ, another one of the same kind of thing." Fetch
Go
quests,
here,
yay!
kill
Fetch
these 20
quests, fuck's
guys.
sake, you know.
Go here, get 6 crates, come back. Go here,
Go
get
here,
this. Go here, bring
go
this
here,
back.
kill this. Go here, yeah,
Go here,
fucking.
deliver that. You know, uh, the other thing that I think will be fun is
The interesting thing is, right? I think I think this is kind of a funny part, like, about the whole thing. Is the interesting thing is, yeah, it's a fetch quest, but in other games you'd still kind of have something similar to that, but like, people wouldn't gravitate towards the fact that it's a fetch quest because there is there is a deeper meaning behind the whole thing, because there's a very very active and very engaging storyline and plot line that is running through it, that kind of like, that is part of these sort of quests, sort of thing, and when it's engaging, when people are engaged with it, and you have to go and do something or take something to somewhere or that kind of thing, and the whole kind of the whole journey of this whole thing is engaging, then you don't see the fact that it's a fetch quest, you don't see that it's a kill quest, you don't see that it's like a delivery kind of thing. Like, it's just becomes part of the storyline that you kind of that you enjoy and that you're involved with. And that's the thing. Like, I don't care. I don't care what kind of background or you come from in terms of like MMOs. or RPGs or anything of that kind of form, right? This day and age, you can't rely on just text to you know to 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 emotionalize your story to an audience. You have to get in there with, with voice acting, with kind of like, with cutscenes. Even if it's, I know that cutscenes in an MMO would be a fucking slightly difficult thing, but the fact that you have, a system that allows you to have, um, fuck is it called? Uh, Help me out. Help me out. It's like the when like the loot system. It's
Individual loot?
yeah, it's individual loot. It's what do you call it? It's the fucking term for it.
No idea. I'm drawing a blank as
It's gonna
well.
fucking haunt me. It's gonna haunt me. But essentially, you see, you already have a system whereby you see things differently to other people in this game. Like whether
Yeah.
you get um whether that's a loot thing or that's some other system, you know, use that for your cutscenes. Use that for various different things, so that it doesn't matter how many people are around, doesn't matter how many, what's about. Like you can still have people go through cutscenes, have people go through those sorts of stuff, and it doesn't affect other people's gameplay. It doesn't look. It doesn't. People don't. Other people don't even see it. You can have that kind of thing occurring in the game, and progress the plot in a way that's entertaining, that's enjoyable for people.
Hmm.
That's the thing. Like that's the thing about quests and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, if it's not engaging at all, then people will be like really fucking uh we'll literally see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And when they see the
Adding
repetitive nature of
depth
it,
and um adding depth, but
yes,
also adding
instancing.
like some more like right word for it.
Yes, Dustin. Yeah, that was the word that I was trying to think of. Instancing. So yeah, if you have this if you have instancing, but in a cinematic kind of way, then you can do all the cinematic kind of aspects to it, and it doesn't affect other people's gameplay, and other people's gameplay won't affect it. So
Yeah. I'm slightly more sympathetic to an NPC who's asking me to do something because he's like panicked than I am
yeah,
like getting asked via text, "Hey, can you go grab this stuff?" It's like,
exactly. I don't even mind if the text is there, so long as it's voiced as well. Like, because at least if it's voiced, you kind of get the emotionality of whichever voice actor it is, like voicing that character and that situation. So yeah,
yeah.
that's how I feel about that. That's how I feel about that. Anyway.
So I also don't think that they're trying to make it too easy. Like there are parts of it that they're clearly trying to make not. Um, there's obviously some grind. There's nothing wrong with grind, as long as it's not grind for grind's sake. Like anybody who's played Warframe, like you know, I think I'm MR 21 right now. So like, if that gives you any idea of like the level of grind I've gone through and I'm willing to go through, like, yeah. Um, that
Hey,
said, like I don't think they're trying to make it overly easy so that people don't quit. I think they're trying to make it not something that people hate. You know, like Eve Online is a good example of this, where like there are aspects of the game that people openly hate and that get them to leave the game because the developers won't do anything to fix them, and there's
mm,
no counterplay to
that
them,
is a problem.
and that's a problem. Like a good example of this when it comes to New World is you know when they changed the PvP from the all the time to the flag based system. A lot of people got upset. Well, yeah, that was done for a good cause though. Like that was done because you could be a very high level individual and just dumpster new people, or, you know, you could be a brand new character rolled just for the purpose of dicking around with people and cause all kinds of problems completely
Yeah.
naked, you know. And there's just so many issues with it that, like, the change itself, sure, it was dramatic, and sure, it made the game easier, but at the same time, it eliminated a lot of the negative components and options for toxicity within the game. Um, and I think that
It was a
that
lot
is a
of
more valuable target to hit.
yeah. There was a lot of people don't realize that when you create like very very rigid systems, um, people will find those edge case situations, exploit them, and generally what tends to happen there is developers try and create new systems, police or curtail those edge case systems. The thing is, players tend to be quite creative in terms of seeing that those fixes and then using those fixes to create new edge cases, in different areas and in different situations that, maybe that particular kind of edge, that particular fix wasn't really intended to be. And it's just like at that point, what all you have is a situation of is an arms race. It's basically an arms race between those players who want to go who want to find the most egregious kind of uses of mechanics of or of fixes, and all that is basically them versus the developers in this continuing arms race. And I understand that there may come a time when the arms race is kind of finalized and finished, sort of thing. But like, if you've ever been in like software development, that doesn't really happen. Like, eventually, what generally tends to happen is the company basically goes like, okay, we just have to we have to tie this shit off and start from scratch. So one of those it's basically you have to find a more elegant way of being able to achieve what you want to achieve. And yeah, that's basically what Amazon Games had to do when it came to the sort of like the issue of open world PvP, is all of the things that they had to put in there to sort of somewhat police it to a degree were being abused like crazy. And they realized that, like, you know the uh the eventual trajectory of that was to a situation that was untenable for them, so they had to go and create a completely new paradigm
Um,
that was a little bit
in
more
previous episodes, we
better.
also talked about the size of the alpha, um, and just how many people could have been involved based on some just basic numbers and like things that we know
Mm.
because they leaked onto Steam and stuff like that. Um, you know,
Yeah.
like, we know that roughly speaking, the alphas have contained in the ballpark of 25 to 55,000 players. Um, and not all at one time, obviously. So, knowing that like Alpha 1 could have been at that size, um, you could also see that the community wasn't growing because you can track these things via tracking subreddits and stuff like that for growth. They had a relative growth, but not substantial. You know, um, and it didn't seem to track with waves. It seemed to more just be continual but small. Um, and it was obvious that, like, the changeover between the two, you can see that there was a dramatic amount more people interested in the game, interested in staying with the community post the PvP changes. Um, how do we feel about guilds that were abusing bugs and not reporting them? I think that those are the kind of people that you don't want to be alpha testing, um, and that seemingly don't understand, um, how a game gets made better. Um, this like there's these groups out there that are like win at all costs, and all that, and it's like the game's not out. Like, so let's put this out there. We know that there's not going to be any progression from the preview week to the next alpha. So like you're starting over again. From there, you're starting over again on beta. You're starting over again at launch. So there's no winning. Like, it's all going to go away. Like, you know,
Yeah, but there's the bragging rights between. That's the
well,
thing.
it's like
It's always the bragging
I
rights.
won
That's
an
the thing.
alpha that's in NDA that I can't talk about. Like, congrats,
Yeah,
I
but
guess.
you say
Like,
that you can't talk about, but they those sorts of people love talking about it like themselves. They like getting a little group together and talking about how they wasted a clan or a group, etc., in their own little kind of their own
yes,
little
we are live right
circle,
now.
you know.
Um,
And it's
it's
one of
just
those
amazing. It's
but
like,
it's one of those things.
yeah, it's
There's
just
going to be
amazing.
those sorts of people.
Yeah, there's
Ace.
always
There's
going
going
to
to
be
be
those
those sorts
people.
of people,
There's
and
always going to be
you
those
have to.
people. Then there's always going to be people like us who go through and very detailed descriptions of um, all of the highly specific bugs that we encounter, how it was encountered, steps that we used to try and fix it. If anybody saw the thread that I had going, I'm not going to out my forum character, but like if anybody saw the thread that I had about like AMD equipment and this like visual stutter that pissed me off for a week and a half, you know, like we
Oh,
tried everything, like fixing Windows, we tried antiviruses, we tried like literally every
all
step
sorts of
that you could
things.
possibly do, down to like uninstalling drivers completely, reinstalling them. You know, at one point in time, I considered reinstalling Windows altogether. Um, you know, it just is what it
Yeah.
is. Um, I'm not gonna pick on any specific groups. They all know who they are. There are some groups I don't want to say, and also don't want to say it's entire groups. There are good people in all groups. I also don't want to sound like Trump. Um, there,
I was thinking that. I was
uh,
like, oh,
like
don't go
there are
there,
also
man.
people that might not condone the behavior but don't speak up about the behavior, which is probably worse. Where they know it's happening, they know that there's a glitch of some kind. Like the people that found out that you can on a certain part or on a certain uh, battle, you could get out of the camp over a tent. Um, you know, and didn't report it until after the fact when somebody else reported it and was like, "Hey, actually, I caught you guys doing this." Uh, and like those are things that hey, you really kind of got to get it on video to show it. But two, like, yeah, yeah, like there's a bunch of people that are
I mean,
just
was you talking about certain
I don't
things?
know if there's a
You talking about
specific
things
person
on
he's
like
talking about. But
on the sort of like the closed beta
am I?
specifically, or
No,
I don't
I'm
know.
talking about the preview. Only the preview.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, sorry, the
AGS, I'm being
preview.
very
My
clear.
bad.
I'm only talking about the preview. I'm not talking
Okay.
about any problem that has existed prior to. Yeah, no,
My bad.
no, only the
I
preview.
meant the preview.
Uh,
I meant the preview event. I meant the preview event. Sorry, my
yeah,
bad.
um,
Because it was technically a closed preview event, and it wasn't an alpha.
yeah,
But regardless, like it was the preview event. Like, but then again, like people were just invited to test to try out the game well, there wasn't a massive, like push for people to, to provide feedback or to, to report, uh, bugs or glitches or exploits. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't a case of like you're here to find bugs, glitches, or exploits. Like it was literally you're here because we promised you a game, and we wanted to show you what we have so far, and essentially have you critique it in a do I like it, do I not like it kind of sense. Like so
yeah,
to in with that framing and with that perspective, I don't mind the fact that people were using and abusing glitches and stuff like that and not reporting it because it wasn't requested for them to do that. But if you're in a closed alpha, where it's all about improving the game and making the game more solid, then yeah, if you're not fucking reporting glitches that you're coming across and you're just abusing it like for that, so you can, get one up on whoever it is that you're fighting, then yeah, you can fuck right off as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
You're
It's
not
there.
you're
There
not
shouldn't be a
worth it
requirement
for the
for some
game.
arcane knowledge, to know like which quests, gave a multiple on XP that they shouldn't have. Um, like that was a
Yeah.
pretty obvious like, hey, something's wrong here because it was giving so much more XP than anything in the game at all that it was painfully obvious that it was wrong. And
Like
then it came
there were
out, then they patched
guys.
it because like, hey, no shit, like people were abusing it. And there were specific groups that abused it more than others. Um, I'm not gonna pull the name game here, but they know who they are. Um, you know,
I mean, there were people on day one that were going past like sort of us that were, and we were kind of like we were grinding in, I think one of the ancient temples, right? Like from sort of level like sort of like 10, like anything from like 10 to 20, right? We were
yeah,
grinding there, and I remember they were talking about like how they sort of noticed us there, and then like only a little bit later they came across like a dude who was completely like just running around naked, right? Running just from one place to another, etc., naked at like level 35. And
mm-hmm,
it's just like, this is day one, for fuck's sake. Clearly something's broken. Clearly something's being abused and clearly something's broken. So yeah, it's just
yeah.
fucking it was just insane.
Um, I do hope that obviously in an alpha you want people to find the problems. You want them to report the problems. Problem is you have to identify that they identified that it was a problem. Um, that said, when it comes to release, I sincerely hope that AGS is not light with the ban hammer on people that do that. Like they need to be heavy-handed and act early, um, and ensure. Like I'm all for finding bugs. Like I found a number of bugs that were very broken. You know, we know people who found bugs that were incredibly broken, like giving yourself near infinite money. You know,
Yeah.
like, hey,
There's
yeah, found it and then reported it and then gave the money to an AGS character. Like, hey, you know, we're not
the
going
other
to
thing
abuse
is
this.
like you don't want to do a Bethesda and like, you know, ban those people who are reporting bugs when they find it because they're technically exploiting a little bit.
Yeah,
You don't want
and
to
there's
you
and
do
there's
not want
there's
to
a
do
way to
that to your
there's a way to
community because
track
that's
that. Like, we
sorry.
were we were very clear on our forum post. Hey, I'm able to reproduce this, or like we would direct message on Discord. Like, hey, here are some of the issues. We'll direct messaged challenges and issues that we were having, and if an exploit was egregious enough, it was, hey, like, I'm reaching out to you because this needs to be held private because I don't want to release it to other people. Um,
Mm.
you know, And there's a number of things like that that were very broken. Um, you know, and we need the game needed those fixed without the masses knowing what it was. Um, at some point in time, I think the switch is going to be pulled from like, okay, hey, clearly they're finding stuff, to like, if they're finding it and using it, they're going to start getting banned for it. But that the alpha is not particularly the best place to do that. The problem is that it also enables a certain level of toxicity. Um,
Mm.
it is what it is at this point. But um, rest assured, I'm reasonably sure um, that they will be heavy-handed when the time is right, um, with people who do not actively report issues that are very clear exploits. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so we talked about the alpha. The alpha is coming in November, um, and I think it would be a good idea to strongly suggest to people that when you're in the alpha, you should actively report all issues. Not, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to save this for a rainy day in case nobody else finds it, you know, and that way we can get an upper hand when the game launches. No, like that's not fair to everyone else. That's not the purpose of actually doing alpha
Mm.
testing to begin with.
That's the thing.
Um,
You're not there to sort of, you're not there to sort of keep your, your um interest, your unique kind of exploits to yourself. Like that's not the reason why you're there. That's not, you're not included in this for that.
yeah. Um, so we know it's going to happen in November. We know that it's going to be based off the um, previous alpha signups, current and closed beta signups. Um, we know that um, there's also going to be giveaways on the social media, um, basically like it was before. And we also know that it's going to be a small pool and adding testers as needed. It's going to be confidential as well, so there will be an NDA behind it. So, those are the big key things that if you didn't know now, you'd now know. So, if you were sitting there going, "Oh, hey, everybody's going to get back in November," that is probably not going to be the case. So,
Mm.
like, if you were holding out for like, "Hey, I'm going to be able to play with all of my friends in November," I would
And
level set your expectations now.
I'm just gonna put it out there, but like if you were potentially removed from one of the alphas because you leaked something and you think, oh, November I can get back into the alpha, fucking awesome. Yeah, I don't think so.
Um, I mean, there's a bunch of there's a bunch of things you really should keep in mind when it comes to this. But the reality is just keep the idea that the game needs to be in the best possible condition for launch and the fairest possible condition for launch. Call out things early, call them out often. Um, you know, it's just important. Um, as somebody who's done a lot of alpha testing, like I find that I get invited to more and more alpha tests um, because of the way that I do this testing. Like McLeod has been there when like I think within the span of like 1 week, I got like 6 invites for random alpha tests. Um, so like,
Someone put you on a list.
yeah, I've got to be on a list somewhere. Because like that was
What
the
you want to
week that I
be?
got the Ghost Recon Breakpoint invite. I got on. I've been involved in a bunch of different games, like just to name a couple. Ghost Recon Wildlands, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Homefront 2, Payday 2, Anno 2205, um,
So the
Division
list that you
2.
really want to be on
You know,
That's a pretty good list to be on. But like the list that you really want to be on is the list that has access to those special Steam clients that
oh yeah,
just have all the games.
yes,
You
yes.
don't have to buy the games; they just have all the games.
And for those that are wondering, I have been with the alpha for New World since the first alpha started,
Mm.
and I have been in every subsequent alpha since. Um, and I'll leave it at that. Um, there's level of detail I can't say. Um, so like it is what it is. So that said, we've been going for about an hour and a half. I don't want to keep talking you guys' ear off. I do want to say thank you guys for coming to the show. Thank you guys for watching. Obviously, we have a Discord, and after the show, we will be hanging out in the Discord. Um,
Mhm.
and our
You can
bot
chill out with us,
is
Dustin, in
broken.
the what?
Our bot's broken. Where'd the bot go? Ah, there
Oh,
it
okay.
is. Ah, it's
It
delayed.
just took
It
a
was
moment.
asleep.
It was like, wait, what? You want me to do something? Oh, fuck.
So we'll be hanging out in the Discord for a little while. Come say hi.
Hmm.
We're friendly. Um, aside from that, if you guys are looking for ways to support the show, we have everything from a Patreon. You can rock that Amazon Prime sub or sub of any level. Um, we
To
also
affiliate
have
links.
we also have our affiliate links on our Discord, where you can buy official New World merch from Amazon, like what McLeod is wearing, and in the process of purchasing that through the affiliate link, we do actually make money off of that. Um, so if you are curious about, or if you want to support the game for one and support us, good choices,
Fantastic.
good ways to do it. We also have our setups when it comes to streaming. All of the links on there, and they're all on our Discord. Feel free
You
to
can
check back on those. Um,
and you can see how terrible my setup is,
yeah, you can see
how
how
it's
much he needs an upgrade.
how it's just that little level past, just like sort of like Steam kind of general Steam kind of powered, because it is
Yeah,
only just past that.
yeah. We're gonna start working on a way to up your setup.
I'll figure it out.
And of course for people who don't want to spend, if you don't want to spend any money at all, toss us a follow. It's free.
Yeah,
That way you at least know when we're going live and you can keep joining us. Um,
yeah.
you know, we'll be
Keep
more than happy to have you, and it's always a good time. Um,
Oop.
that said,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Get fucked,
that
Pinocchio.
is all. Oh, apparently our Streamlabs bot has gone.
I mean, honestly, that was a good bit of sniping by Streamlabs bot. Like
He's
that was perfect sniping.
proficient. uh, I don't know what it posted. It's that fast. Uh, so that said, we will see you guys in the Discord. Thank you guys. And I also want to thank Amazon Game Studio for the awesome transitions that you're about to see as we transition to the outro.
They're slick.
Have a good one, and we'll see you in the new world.